Hello everyone and welcome to episode 2 of WNBL ITV. My name's Darren Boyd. I'm one of the hosts of the program. Thanks for joining us once again. And the best news of the week, Laurie Chiswick, is that we've been invited back for another crack at this. This is a bit of fun.
Well, Darren, you know what? This week, again, there were so many upsets. That first week, all the home teams won. Yep. Second week, clean sweep of the away teams. Yeah,
it was a really fascinating week. Some upset results, as you said, some surprising results, some teams that we saw we thought were going to be good, but they seemed to lack a little bit of chemistry. But perhaps the biggest news story of the week was some sad news out of the AIS with a player who I know that you've spent quite a lot of time with over the years, ruled out with a very serious injury.
Yes, we understand that Beck Cole, in training on Monday, she ruptured her ACL and is out for the whole season. So she's returned to Melbourne. She returned yesterday. I spoke to her dad today. She was actually off to see the surgeon probably as we speak right now. But yeah, not good news for Beck Cole.
No, you never like to hear of anybody getting injured in sport or any walk of life really, but particularly a talented player such as Beck. I mean, she's not just any player. She's the captain of the team. She was the captain of the under-19 Australian team, the Gems, who went to the World Championship a little bit earlier this year and had a really fantastic future in the game. She was the medalist at the under-20 state championships last year, where you coached her as well.
Well, she was. She was the MVP. She was the captain. And as Phil Brown said, she's so much more than just a leader on the court. She is really the heart and soul of the team. And she is such an enthusiastic player. She's got all this energy. And she's just going to be sorely missed by the Institute.
She certainly will, and we wish Beck all the best for a very, very speedy recovery, and we hope she can regain full fitness and be back on the court as soon as possible. All right, Laura, let's have a look back to what happened in round 2, and we'll start with our ABC TV game of the week. The producers were good enough to give you the week off, and it was a funny game. The Sydney Uni Flames, that was one of the biggest upsets of the week, I think, for me. They ran out very narrow winners, just by the 5 points over the Adelaide Lightning. Both of these teams with a lot of talent, but I think that there's still going to be a way to go, Laurie, before they hit absolute peak fitness and form.
Well, I think, Darren, you'd have to say that that's very true, that really their defensive intensity probably lacked somewhat. I think it went in ebbs and flows in this game. And same with the offensive intensity. It was a bit scrappy at times. We see some good things from players, some layups, some threes, but there was no consistency in that game.
There really wasn't, but I reckon there's so much credit's got to go to Sydney, and this lady in particular, Amy Denson. She had 25 points, she was our game MVP, she was an absolute star, but they were horrible in the first quarter. They shot the ball at 20% in the first quarter, but what they were able to do was be tenacious. They kept at it. For the rest of the game, they shot the ball at 46%, Laurie, and they out-rebounded a much bigger Adelaide side. In particular, their work at the offensive end was impressive.
Well, that's just put that down to tenacity with that team, certainly. And somebody like Belinda Snell, who she couldn't buy a basket that first half, but she has got a shooter's mentality, and she just kept shooting it. Finished the game with 14 points, 7 assists. So again, she just kept going, and as that whole team did.
And we're just seeing some action here of sort of down the stretch. Abby Bishop was fantastic for the home side down the stretch. I felt like they probably didn't use Susie Batkovic enough. She was on fire early, had 11 points in the first quarter, but then nearly didn't score for 2 quarters. And you wonder if they're really how well they executed. But we saw there Belinda Snell hitting that 3-point shot with 1:40 to go. Here's Amy Denson with the game-winning basket to go to a 5-point lead. But Laurie, the last 100 seconds from both sides, I don't know if Karen Dalton and Peter Buckle will just throw it in the bin or whether or not they'll make the side suffer through it, because they executed down the stretch terribly.
Well, you'd like to say that, you know, it was a great finish in that, but it was actually a comedy of errors with some turnovers, some 4 missed foul shots by Sydney that would have really sealed the game. And then that layup by Marina when it should have been a 3-point shot. Wow. Yeah, 5 seconds to go. They needed a 3 to tie, and instead she went in for the layup. It was a mistake and a bit of a mental error, and I'm sure that Peter Buckle will work with his charger throughout the week to try and rectify that. But full credit to Sydney. They were fantastic, got the job done. Then they headed to Perth. We'll have a look at that result a little bit later on. The other game from Friday night was at the Institute at the training hall. The AIS hosted the Townsville Fire, and Laurie, once again, Townsville, who
this wasn't their most impressive performance for the weekend, but they did the job, and their American import, Shanavia Dowdle's continuing to show her best colours.
She is, and I would think that Chris Lucas really just wanted to get another game under their belt, but without any disrespect to the Institute, I'm sure he was really focusing on that Canberra game the next day.
Yeah, they were able to spread their minutes around, which gave them an excellent impetus into that Canberra game, and I think it showed in the second half because Canberra led by 1 point, the Capitals, at half-time. But then in the second half, Townsville were able to go out and they destroyed the Caps. 38-25 in the second half, and they ran away with that game.
Well, Darren, and you have to remember that Townsville outfit was without Mia Newley suiting up. She hyperextended her knee the week before against Bendigo. So what a great result against a well-coached Canberra team.
And I tell you what, becoming one of my favourite players in the competition, not just for what she does on the court, she's also a great personality as well, but Rachel Flanagan, she's the Townsville captain. She was so vocal last year when they almost went under. They were going to lose their licence. The Fire were not going to be in existence anymore, and she was one of the players that rallied behind the team. She stayed there with a new coach, and Chris Lucas just described her as inspirational.
Yeah. 20 points that game. She really led them, and they needed that leadership in that game because it was close throughout.
Now, down in Melbourne, there are a couple of blockbusters over the weekend. We'll start in Dandenong, where the Rangers went down once again to the Logan Thunder. They'd be very disappointed with that result, Laurie. It was a rematch of the elimination final last year. Jenna O'Hay's first match back with the Rangers after a few years away at Bulleen. A great performance by the unbeaten Thunder.
That's right, and I think they had 5 players in double figures. Dandenong had 4 players. So all the big guns that we're expecting to are really standing out week in and week out. And it was a close one, and Dandenong, having won a close one the previous week, you know, now they were on the losing end of it.
Yeah, we're going to catch up with Renee Camino, one of the stars from that game. She had 18 points, and Kayla Francis is also in fantastic form for the Thunder. I'm really looking forward to seeing them on ABC TV a little bit later on this week. But this is the game I really want to talk about, Laurie. Bulleen and Bendigo, Saturday night at the Veneto Club. Was this one of the best games you've seen in a long time?
Well, Darren, usually I'm at Bulleen as a commentator, so it was great to be there as a spectator. And I tell you what, it was just a shooting bonanza the first half. And in fact, I was so impressed with it. At halftime, I went down to the stats people and I said, can I have a look at the stats? Bendigo were shooting an astonishing 59% and Bulleen 52%. Their score at halftime was the same as the Canberra-Townsville score at three-quarter time. It was just a wonderful spectacle of women's basketball.
So what was so special about it, aside from the shooting? I mean, was the defence lax, or was it just great execution from two sides who, well, certainly they got great point guards, Christy Harrow and Sam Richards?
Well, I think it was a little bit of both. I mean, I know Bulleen's defense down the stretch wasn't great, and certainly the coaches are talking about that. But I loved Bendigo's teamwork, and we talked about last week how they've got that chemistry because they've been together already. And I tell you what, that starting five, they knew exactly where each other were on the court. And down the stretch, I do think it was Christy Harrower and her decision-making, and Kelly Wilson coming up with some monster offensive rebounds that finally got that job done. Yeah,
it's a huge win for the Bendigo Spirit, particularly after going 0-2 last week on their Queensland road trip. A massive result for Bernie Harrower and his team. Rounding out the results from last weekend is over in Perth, where the Sydney Uni Flames, Laurie, were able to complete their road double. They upset Rahani Cox's homecoming, and a pretty comfortable victory for the Flames, capping off a great weekend for Karen Dalton's team.
Absolutely, and one of the things that stuck out for me in that game was the fact that Belinda Snell had 12 points, but she had 11 assists.
Yeah.
11 assists. She leads the league right now, averaging almost 9 assists a game. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, a couple of, in all her matches so far in the season, she's had almost a triple-double, and it really is extraordinary. It just shows what a brilliant player she is and how exciting it is to have her back in the competition.
Absolutely, and you know, week in and week out, she's going to produce those numbers, whether it's on the score sheet or the assists, so watch out MVP voting at the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely right. All right, let's have a look at the ladder now and see the state of play after round 2. And of course, we've got 3 teams up the top there, undefeated. Townsville, Sydney and Logan. As I said, Laurie, very excited that we're going to be having a look at Sydney and Logan clashing later on this week on ABC TV, and we will certainly have a preview of that a little bit later on in the program. It's pretty congested around the middle, as you would expect. But Laurie, each week what we're going to be doing is, and we said this on the show last week, we're going to try and make our program, WNBL ITV, as interactive as we possibly can. We want people to jump on the WNBL's Facebook site, tweet us. We haven't got you on Twitter yet, Laurie. I'm a bit disappointed about that. But tweet the WNBL, tweet me, get in contact with us, and we'll do our best to answer some of the very best questions that come through. Now, this week, Laurie, we've got a Facebook question come from Christopher Dolby, who wrote to us and said, wanted your opinion, since you're the expert, on what we make of Canberra's 0-3 start to the year. Are you surprised by that?
Well, yes and no. I mean, Canberra, I don't think have been in that position for many, many years, if ever, certainly since Kerry Graff's coach. But you know, I looked at them when they played against Boleyn, and certainly I don't think they've got the depth that they've had in the past, and that was more than evident by the fact that they recruited Nat Porter to suit up with them. So, you know, I think they're a great coach team, and I don't think they'll be down there for that long. But yes, I'd have to say I am surprised. Yeah,
well, what impact do you think that Nat Porter's going to have? She played 23 minutes on the weekend, had 4 points, didn't really shoot the ball well. I'm sure that'll come back. It's just a touch thing, I imagine, getting back to the speed of play. But I know you spoke to her during the week. How's she feeling?
Well, she was so excited, and she was loving being back on the court. She had one training on Thursday afternoon. She said halfway through training she was getting a bit fatigued, and some under-18 boys came in, and she went, oh no, we're having to play them. And you know, she said her foot speed felt a bit slow and that, but her match fitness was okay. As far as the shots go, she says, I'm putting up 500 shots a day this week for the upcoming games. And she sounded just like a little kid. She was so enthusiastic.
That is exciting. But 500 shots a game, I don't even think Jess Bibby could match that. But anyway, that's a pretty extraordinary...
500 a day. She's practicing.
Yeah, of course. I believe you. Now, all right, every week at this time, as we wrap up the action from round 2, every week at this time, what we're going to do on WNBL ITV is catch up with some of the stars of the competition. Sometimes they're going to be joining us in the studio. Sometimes they'll be joining us through all sorts of other technology, and sometimes we will have caught up with them during the week. On this occasion, I'm going to cross to Catherine Murphy, who did catch up with one of the brightest stars in the WNBL sky.
Thank you, guys. Joining me now is the very talented Renee Kimono, who of course joined Logan Thunder last year from Adelaide. So Renee, it's your second season with the club. Does it really feel like home now?
Yeah, it's the first time I've actually stayed at WNBL club for longer than a season, so it's a different feeling, but I like it, and we've kept the same group, so it's a good, nice feeling.
Like you say, you've moved around a bit. You've also played in France. What does that do for a player and for your development?
I mean, I've had some great experiences, and everywhere you go you learn something new and you meet so many different new people. So I'd like to think I'm a little bit more worldly for moving around so much, but it's definitely nice to be at the same club back again.
You've had to deal with serious injury in the past. How have you handled that?
Yeah, I mean, when you have something that you are so passionate about taken away from you, definitely, yeah, it's definitely a much more want to succeed and to be back in that environment again.
A lot of talk about the evenness of this year's competition. How excited are you to see how the season pans out?
Yeah, it's going to be so exciting. I don't think you can pick a winner now, and I don't even think you can pick how the season's going to pan out, which is really exciting to be involved in.
You've won a championship before, of course, with Adelaide. What would it mean to you to add another medal to your tally?
Yeah, there's no better feeling than winning a championship. You know, I'm lucky enough to have done it once before, and to do it again would be awesome.
In the off season, you've been busy. You've bought a business. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I stumbled across an opportunity in the off season. I bought a franchise, and the franchise called New Skin. So it's the business side of things, and it's definitely been an interesting challenge, and I've really enjoyed it. Something away from basketball, and it's so far so good.
Tell us a bit about the product. Give it a bit of a plug.
It's half skin products, so half skincare, skin products, all natural makeups, and then the other side is all health and nutrition side, so vitality and giving you the best you can feel in life, basically.
Wow, what about the skin products? Have your teammates been asking for freebies?
Yeah, well,
how annoying is that?
Well, actually, they haven't asked for freebies. They've all just taken my word for it and bought it, so it's been good for me.
Fantastic. Good work. Sounds like you're a good saleswoman. Thank you so much for your time, and best of luck.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks to Catherine Murphy there with the incredibly engaging Renee Camino. And, well, I haven't quite got onto my new skins product yet, but I'm sure I'll be looking to Renee for a couple of those freebies at some point. All right, now it's time for a bit of a news update. We're going to cross over to Catherine Murphy at the news desk.
Thank you for that, guys. Well, it's been a big weekend of milestones. Bendigo's Christy Harrower played her 250th game at the weekend, and Sydney Uni's Karen Dalton coached her 250th. So a big congratulations to both of them. Congratulations are also in order for Amy Denson. She is this week's Player of the Week after she scored 25 points in Sydney Uni's dramatic win over Adelaide at the weekend. Here's what she had to say after that absolute nail-biter.
What a heart-stopping finish.
Thanks. It was such a team effort tonight, and you know, it was a big challenge for us, game 2, playing such a tough team, and we just wanted to really, you know, test ourselves. We knew we needed to stop, you know, get stops and boards and stay together, so we did really well tonight. It was a good step for us in the right direction. So.
And even more heartening is that it was almost in the manner of a comeback, because it was quite a sluggish start.
Yeah, it was a tough start. The game was real fast. They're very strong, so of course when you're hitting, running, that gets very tiring very quickly. So it took us a while to catch our breath and get our legs from the trip and everything. So.
Yes, indeed, a great game for Amy. Now, I'm afraid I've got more injury news coming from the AIS and more drama from them. Not only have they lost Rebecca Cole, they'll also be without Tessa Levy. She's succumbed to a foot injury and will miss this week, so that's a big blow for them. There is some good news. They do welcome back Carly Michovic. She's back from the elbow injury that kept her out last week. And finally, we have some news from Canberra Capitals, and long-term assistant coach Sandy Tomley is due to have a baby any day now, in fact any moment now. So from everybody at WNBL TV, we wish you the absolute best of luck. Back to you guys.
Yeah, thanks Catherine, and certainly very best wishes to Sandy Tomley. She's great. It's always been great to me. Certainly for the Canberra Capitals, we've had dinner with her a couple of times, and very expansive with her knowledge of the game. And this is an exciting chapter in your life. You know a lot more about it than me, Laurie. Though.
Yes, Darren. And I spoke to Sandy, and she's guaranteed that she's going to let WNBL ITV know first off the ranks when she does have her baby. All
right, that's thrilling. We'll have another scoop for Catherine next week, no doubt about it at all. Now, let's have a look at round 3. Some interesting games coming up in round 3. And we're starting off with our ABC TV game of the week. As I mentioned, Sydney Uni against the Logan Thunder, 2 unbeaten sides. Our coverage will be from 1 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. Make sure you double check your local guides. But Laurie, I'm really thrilled. I'm looking forward to this one immensely.
Well, anytime you get 2 undefeated teams, top of the ladder battle, it's going to be filled with lots of things. The real, probably the best matchup I'm looking forward to, because they've both had really good games so far, is Poto and Veely. Veely, 20 points last week. She'll be firing. She will be, but I'll tell you, the one I'm looking forward to is Amy Denson against Kayla Francis. So Kayla Francis has started the season in sensational fashion, and it's going to be interesting to see if that is actually going to be a matchup they'll go to. They probably have to, Sydney, because they're so undersized. I'm not quite sure who else is going to be able to guard Kayla. Yeah. The other player, Darren, that I'm interested in, we haven't heard a lot about yet from Logan, is their import. Karina Montgomery is her name, and she's been playing sizable minutes, but probably just getting her feet settled in the league. Well, make sure you tune in to us on Saturday afternoon, ABC TV, Game of the Week, the Sydney University Flames against the Logan Thunder. Also on Friday night, and this game will be live around the country on WNBL Radio. So make sure you go to the WNBL website, and it's the Townsville Fire hosting the Canberra Capitals. And Laurie, the Caps get a chance for quick revenge after losing at home, and they'd be disappointed with that last week. Well, that's the quirkiness of the draw, playing back-to-back straight away. So I spoke to Chris Lucas, and he said that certainly Graffy will be looking at the tape and coming up with some counters, making some adjustments. So he's now having to counter her counters, and it should be a very thrilling and enthralling game. Yeah, well, they've coached against each other and with each other for quite some time. So I'm sure they'll have all those countermeasures well in action, without a doubt. Now, as I say, WNBL Radio is where you can check that one out on Friday night, live around the country. The other game on Friday night is the Adelaide Lightning they're hosting, in fact, the AIS in their first game of a road double. And I imagine, Laurie, despite their chemistry problems, Catherine's just told us about some more injury problems for the AIS. This should be a relatively comfortable victory for the Lightning. Well, you would think so, certainly without their leader, Beck Cole, and now Tessa Levy's out. And Adelaide are going to really want to get back on that winner's circle, especially at home.
All right, now we've mentioned the WNBL website a few times. If you can't get to any of these games, of course, what you should do is check out the WNBL website because there are live stats on there. And also, what you should do is check out their brand new smartphone website where you can just type into your smartphone m.wnbl.com.au and you can download a new app and a new program. You can actually get that onto your phone. It's a great little application, Laura, and I know being as techno-savvy as you are, you'll be across that.
Absolutely, Darren. Let me get the tweet done first.
Yeah,
please.
okay, all right, one thing at a time. All right, now to the other games for round 3, and the Bendigo Spirit are hosting the West Coast Waves on Saturday night, and after a thrilling victory last week against Bulleen, they'll definitely start favourite in this one, the Spirit.
Well, they will, and it is their first home game, Darren, and I would expect a huge crowd out there to welcome them back, and because they've had a good start to the season, even though they had those 2 losses, they were close losses, and you can just feel this team starting to gain a bit of momentum. Out
at the Dandenong Basketball Stadium, the Rangers are hosting the AIS, and tough weekend for the girls for the Institute. Coming up in this one against Jenna O'Hay, Kathleen McLeod, and a cavalcade of stars out there at the Ranger Dome. Well, the only thing I can see that might stop Dandenong from doing well, although I'm sure they will get over the Institute, is we know last year that they went to the Melbourne Cup, compliments of Jerry Ryan, their sponsor, and so that is, hopefully they don't have that on their minds yet. Well, if Americane gets up again like he did last year for Jerry Ryan, it could be an interesting, week out there at Dandenong headquarters. The last game on Saturday night is the Logan Thunder against the Canberra Capitals, and what a tough weekend again for Canberra. Going to Townsville, going down to Logan, and both of these sides on the second game of a road double, but I think you've got to favour the Thunder at home, don't you? Could you imagine, Darren? Canberra could conceivably be 0-5 after this weekend. I mean, let's hope not for their sake, but conceivably they could be, and I think I'd have to favour Logan. Being it's their home game. Yeah, you could have written your own ticket, I think, for that. Since we're in racing parlance, you could have written your own ticket for that at the start of the season. Now, the final game, rounding out the weekend, Sunday afternoon at the Veneto Club, the Bulleen Boomers hosting the West Coast Waves. Lizzie hasn't had a great start to the season. Still taking a bit of time to get back into match practice. Do you think she'll have a big impact on this one? Well, I think she'll get better and better each game. But one thing that's interesting about this is Bulleen actually do not leave Melbourne until November 18th. Yep. They play 5 home games and 1 game at Dandenong. So again, these games are musts for them. Whether Liz is playing well or not, they've got to get it done. Yeah, as you say, it's the quirkiness of the draw. You mentioned it a little bit earlier, and it can be very favourable for some teams and perhaps not quite so for others. I'm sure Carrie Graff and Tom Maher have had some words about it during the off-season. All right, Laurie, it's just about time for us to wrap up as we've got the details here, as we said, of our social media campaign. We've mentioned the Facebook site for the WNBL. We've mentioned the Twitter handle for the WNBL, @WNBL, and Laurie's soon to be advised. But we've had people already tweeting in. We've heard before from one of our viewers, and there's, no matter how interesting and crazy or your suggestions might be, we've had some tweeting from Jodie, who's a regular correspondent with me on Twitter, and she wants, we talked about this with Rachel in our coverage on the weekend, she wants Julia Gillard and Barack Obama to get together and have a bet on the result of the of Opals versus America at the London Olympic Games. Do you think that'll wash? I think that'd be a great idea. It'd certainly generate a little bit of interest and discussion out there. Yeah, it certainly would. But, well, you know, just send through your interactive questions. We'll be happy to answer them as we go right throughout the season on WNBL ITV. All right, Laurie, that's about all we've got time for. Really looking forward to round 3. It's been a pleasure to be here with you once again, and I hope for another great week of WNBL action. Yes, Darren, I'm really looking forward to, as always, this next week of games coming up. All right, fantastic. Thank you very much for your company once again. Join us again next week on Wednesday night when WNBL ITV brings you yet another episode. Until then, enjoy the competition.